Hello guys, my name is Aamish Abid and I am a student and I got banded in IELTS in the academic test of it. And basically this is my third video that I'm making in English on IELTS. And in this video I'll tell you how to write the third and fourth paragraph of a report, okay? And the report is the task one, okay? So I've already made two other videos on report writing. The first one was on introduction on how to write the introduction of a report. If you haven't seen that, you need to see that first, and I'll leave the link in the description below. And the second video was on how to write an overview of the report, and I'll also leave the link of that video in the description below. So basically, the introduction is like the first paragraph where you paraphrase the question statement, and the overview is the second paragraph. So those are part two. So those are like two videos that you need to watch. And in this video, I'll tell you how to write the third and fourth paragraph. So there are usually four paragraphs in reports. Okay. So this is like the video three of that. Okay. So let's begin. So guys, I'll just tell you the key points that you need to know when you're writing a third and fourth paragraph of a report. So basically you need to include the main figures which are on the y-axis and which are on the x-axis. The x-axis is like the horizontal line and the y-axis is the vertical line of a graph, okay? So you need to include the figures. Remember, in introduction and overview we did not include any figures or stats, but in third and fourth paragraph you need to do that because we are going in more detail, okay? You need to include adverbs, so you need to like use adverbs such as likewise, similarly, etc. I'll just give an examples in a minute. And you need to talk about, you need to write about, I mean, about increase, decrease, stability, or fluctuation, okay? So if something is increasing, you need to say that in your third paragraph and fourth paragraph, but you also need to include the figures. So for example, if we're talking about the revenue of a company, we could say that the revenue of Microsoft increased from $50 billion to $100 billion from 2002 to 2012, okay? So you need to like give these stats as well. If it's decreasing, you need to do the same. You need to, for example, you could say that the revenue of Facebook decreased from $100 billion to $80 billion in 2 years time from 2005 to 2007, okay, whatever. Now if something is stable, you need to also say that. So stability basically means that it's neither increasing neither decreasing, okay? So it's like constant. So you need to say that as well. If something is fluctuating, you need to say that as well. So fluctuation basically means that it's increasing and then it's decreasing. After a time period, then increases again and then it decreases and then it's stable. Or like there's no like a trend, okay? It keeps decreasing and increasing. So for example, this increases and then decreases and then it's constant and then increases again and then decreases. So that's fluctuation, okay? So in paragraph 3, write either about the increase or decrease, and in paragraph 4, write about the opposite trend. So, for example, if we choose to write about, for example, if we have three companies, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft, and all of them, for example, if we have six companies, and three of them are increasing and three of them are decreasing in terms of the revenue, okay? So, for example, let's say Facebook, Microsoft, and Amazon have increasing revenues. So in the third paragraph, you could write about that these companies, uh, the revenues of these companies is increasing day by day, and you could give the stats. But the three other companies, let's say we have Burger King, Pizza Hut, and McDonald's, okay, and their revenue is decreasing. So in the fourth paragraph, you could talk about the decreasing trend. You could also do vice versa. So you could in the third paragraph you could talk about the decreasing revenues, and in the fourth paragraph you could talk about the increasing revenues, or you could do it the other way around. It's up to you. But the difference between the third and fourth paragraph is the main difference is that uh, you basically need to include opposite trends. So you need to group the data together. So if you want to talk about the increase, talk about it in paragraph 3. For decrease, talk about it in paragraph 4. If you choose to talk about the decrease in paragraph 3, that's completely fine. But in paragraph 4, you need to talk about the increase, okay? And if it's something like fluctuating or stable, then you can include it in either of the paragraphs. So you could include fluctuation or stability in third or fourth paragraph. It's up to you, okay? The other thing is that you need to write between 150 to 250 words. So the minimum limit is usually 150 words, and the max that there's no max limit, but you should not write like above 250 words. Beyond 250 words, you shouldn't write beyond 250 words because uh, it would take a lot of time and energy to do that. Okay, uh, so it's better to write up to 250 words and a minimum of 150 words. Okay, so let's move on. So we over here have a graph, and it's a line graph, and it shows the consumption of spreads. Okay, yeah, I've done this graph in the other two videos, the introduction and the overview, and I'm using the same graph over here. Okay, because you need to like build upon from the foundation. So you first need the introduction, then the overview, and then the third and fourth paragraph. So I'll just uh, go through the introduction really quick. So the introduction of this paragraph was that it basically shows the consumption of spreads. Okay, so the introduction was that the line graph shows information about how much of three kinds of spreads were consumed over 26-year period from 1981 to 2007. Okay, I've already explained this in detail in the other video. I'll leave the link in the description. So it's just like I'm just showing you like an example. Okay, so now let's move on. Over here we have the overview of our report. So this is like the same graph, and the overview is that overall the consumption of low fat and reduced spreads increased over the time period given, while for margarine and butter it decreased. At the beginning of the period, butter was the most popular spread, while low fat and reduced spreads became the most popular in the final years. Okay, so we have already done two paragraphs. Introduction is the first one, overview is the second paragraph. Okay, now we'll move on to third and fourth. Do watch these videos, I'm telling you, because you can't move on to third and fourth paragraph if you do not know how to write the first and second paragraph. Okay, so again we have the same graph, consumption of spreads. So I'll tell you how to write the third paragraph. So in this case, we have talked about the overall decrease. Okay, so you have, so the time period is between 1981 to 2007, as you can see in the on the axis, on the x-axis. And I told you that you need to write opposite trends in paragraph 3 and 4. So we in third paragraph I chose to write about the overall decreases. Okay, so let's see. So you could start with something like this. Looking at the details, you could start it like that. Okay, looking at the details with regards to the amount of margarine used, it began at around 90 grams in 1981. Note that I'm using the figures. You need to use the figures. So if you look at margarine, it's the blue line, right? Uh, so margarine began at around 90 grams in 1981, after which the figures saw a fluctuant trend. Fluctuant trend basically means like it fluctuated, okay? After which the figures saw a fluctuant trend and then decreased to 40 grams in 2007. So if you follow up the blue line, you'll see that in 2007 it decreased to 40 grams, okay? uh, then you could use an adverb and begin your second sentence. So you could say similarly, approximately 142 grams of butter. So butter is the green line. Okay. Uh, Similarly, approximately 142 grams of butter were used in 1981, and then peaked at nearly 160 grams in 1986. So peaked basically means like the highest point, as you know, like it's the highest, like we have the highest mass over here, the highest consumption basically. Okay, so you could say similarly, approximately 142 grams of butter were used in 1981, and then it peaked at nearly 160 grams in 1986 before dropping significantly to around 50 grams in 2007. You might tell me here that, hey Amish, you told us that you need to either write about the decrease or increase in both of the paragraphs, but but I'm talking about the increase as well. I said that it peaked, and over here I said that uh, it's a fluctuant trend. But I should point out that you need to talk about the overall increase or decrease. So the decrease or increase over the whole time period, not like of 2 3 years. Okay. So if you follow up the blue line, which is now green, you'll see that overall in from 1981 to 2007 it decreased. If you see, okay, if you compare these. If you follow up the green line, which is butter, you'll see that it also decreased over the time period. It did went up, it did show up a trend. It peaked at 160 grams approximately, but then it decreased rapidly. So I talked about the decrease in paragraph 3. Now let's move on to paragraph 4. Okay. So I'll now tell you how to write the fourth paragraph. So remember, I told you to write about the opposite trend, and in this case, it's increased because we had already talked about the decrease in the third paragraph. So we have the red line here, which is for low fat and reduced spreads. So the red line is basically the consumption increased, and then it slightly decreased after some time. But you should talk about the overall trend and its increase. Okay, the overall trend is that it increased over the time period given. So you could start your fourth paragraph with something like, in contrast, and you then put a comma. Because you're writing over the opposite trend, so it's good to use in contrast. Because examiners are looking for a wide variety of sentence structures and a wide variety of vocabulary. Okay, so write in contrast. Then say the consumption of low fat and reduced fats began at approximately 10 grams in 1996. Uh, so this began in 1996. It did not begin in 1981. So you talk about 1996. So it began at approximately 10 grams in 1996. Then you start your second sentence by saying after that this figure peaked at over 80 grams 5 years later. So 5 years later. So if we had 5 years to 1996, that's 2001. So if you see in 2001, it peaked because it's the highest point of consumption. So this figure peaked at over 80 grams 5 years later, but then saw a downward trend to about 70 grams in the final year. So remember I told you you need to write about the opposite trend and you need to write what's the overall trend. So the overall trend is increase. So we talked about it, but then you can also mention that it saw a slight downward trend to about 70 grams in the final year, which is 2007. And also I need to pinpoint that if you notice, I've used words such as approximately, at, over, to, about. So this basically symbolizes, or you can say this basically means that it's an estimation. It's not like an exact value, okay? Because in graphs, sometimes you need to estimate it, okay? You can't say the exact same thing. So because we don't have the scale. So you could say in contrast, the consumption of low fat and reduced fats began at approximately 10 grams in 1996. After that, this figure peaked highest point at over 80 grams 5 years later. Not that I used 5 years later because it's like I could have said in 2001. There's no problem in that. You can say that too, but I wrote 5 years later because it's a bit of a different phrase. Okay, so you need to like write some different phrases as well in order to get high bands. So 5 years later, but then saw downward trend to about 70 grams in the final year. I did not use 2007, I used final year because it's again a different phrase, okay? So it's better to use that. So I hope you found this helpful. So best of luck guys for your exams. I wish you all the best for exams. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful. And please like, subscribe, click on the bell icon and share this video and comment on what topic shall I make the next video. And see you, take care, bye bye. And yeah, I forgot to mention that do watch the videos on introduction or overview. I'll leave the link in the description below. You need to know that in order to get a high band in report writing. Okay, so see you, take care, bye bye.